Hello, my customer success friends. 𝐇𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐋𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐋𝐈𝐆𝐇𝐓 for yet another episode of CSM Practice Podcast, where I have amazing people coming in to talk about what they do. And I don't think I've ever had a podcast episode inviting a CSOPS manager to showcase what the hell is this function all about? What do they do? How do they measure success? Lessons learned. I mean, we today got Ben Krefting, who's been doing CSOPS for quite some time, to tell us what works and what doesn't too, and kind of lessons learned. So I'm super excited about this session today. Hey, Ben, thanks for joining our show today. And thank you so much for taking the time. It's been very thoughtful to do the prep for this interview today.
Thanks. Great to be here.
What type of professions should one hire from into their CS ops team if they do want to hire people that don't have CS ops experience per se? Or when you look at resumes, what are you kind of like the jobs that you're hoping to have found there previous to joining your team?
You see a lot of variety, especially now as CS ops is becoming prevalent across different industries. Analyst roles where you might have been doing testing, where you might have been doing some sort of product work around an enhancement and requirements, and then validation with stakeholders, and then the outcomes that you were able to reach with those things are some of the behavioral skills and behavioral questions I would probably ask of those candidates. I think the idea of working with ambiguity, seeking out the details, and those roles, you can see it in financial analyst roles as well. That could also potentially be an area where someone can make a good transition from looking at a lot of financial data, where you might be building financial reports from disparate data sources. That would give you the skills to also look at the problems being presented, and then also being able to apply problem solving, new, unfamiliar concepts. Having that curiosity, hey, I don't necessarily understand what we might be talking about, but I Googled it, I watched 10 YouTube videos. That tenacity, that desire to learn is also going to be one of the most desired skills I would look for. And I think, again, it's especially helpful if you have a lower maturity product, lower maturity organization. You will see your teams needing to rely on that far more.
Very interesting career path for yourself. Today you work at CRB. Tell me a little bit about what type of clients does CRB has that your customer success managers work with? And then who are your clients?
So CRB is a fintech bank, and we work with partners to enable financial solutions for their platforms. So that might be payments, it might be lending, and enabling those platforms, which you might experience through an app, or you might experience through a website, to connect the value that they offer you to your financial instruments, bank accounts, credit cards, etc. We mostly interact with the customers that own those platforms and their teams supporting the financial integrations on those platforms. We have a relationship management team across our products, and those teams are working day to day with their peers and counterparts in both technology and on the financial side with our partners. And then my team is working with those relationship managers interacting with our partners to support them with the outcomes that they need to solve problems for our partners. So they are on the receiving end of a lot of the requests that come in, ensuring that we reach outcomes that are beneficial for our customers and address their needs, and then providing feedback holistically across the whole set of questions, inquiries, needs, gaps that come up to help us be a better organization with both our product and also how we work together cross-functionally.
You don't per se have CSMs, you call them relationship managers. They work with the business lead as well as the technical lead at the client side, which is typically a financial institution. And I feel like the product is a set of tools that together make up a solution to address
Correct.
a specific business lead that the client has. And your value prop is that you can architect the right solution and customize it to the financial institute's needs versus selling a specific product with a finite set of features. Would that be a true statement?
Correct. So we do consultative selling. A lot of our solutions may be a combination of different things. Those things they might be lending products, they might be credit card products, and they might be deposit accounts or payment rails. those things can all be connected in different ways so that you can solve the specific business problem on your platform that your end customers need.
The partner manager, the relationship manager, is actually bringing in as many resources as he needs internally. They might have a solution architect or whatever that they work in a pod whenever a request is being received. But from what I understood, your team has a big part in collecting these requests and working with product to enable the
Correct.
roadmap.
So what you do when you start working across the different customers and different products is you start to see the themes of either customer requests that perhaps those things are data aggregation, data analysis that could be self-service surfaced in a different way with a product or offering that brings those things together. You also start to see, hey, how could these requests be product enabled? If these items were surfaced or self-taught in a way or walked through within the product, would customers need to reach out and have these requests in the meantime? Then how do you get those requests internally back to product, get them prioritized and put in a backlog for grooming so that they become a reality? That's one aspect that we work with. Also, the analytics all across the organization. Where are the trends in our requests and why? So how do you then see those, proactively get in front of them so that you can now have a quantitative discussion with your leadership? Hey, we see this many of this. This many of this probably means that this many people are working on it. This means this many people need it. This now allows us to say, hey, even using back of the napkin math, what is the dollar impact of this? What is the value that it has to offer if we address it? And then how will we make it a reality and when becomes the open question that you can ask the product teams. And then it's also where you're the connection between the relationship management side or the success side in the field. Hey, we've heard you and here's what we're doing and here's how it is going to fit into our roadmap.
We talk a lot about how CS should be working with product. And this is an interesting angle of saying, you know what, CSOPS should be the function that consolidates all repetitive requests. But then you said there's other types of requests that you find even more productive to collect and share with product. What was that? Like the epiphany moment that you had after doing a bunch of repetitive request collections?
Where I see a lot of peers and like a lot of approaches to this challenge start is that there's a need to have a team that only focuses on repetitive asks, because those can be documented. You can provide somebody with a document and say, here, this is playbook, follow this when this happens. And we can count how many of these things happen because we're anticipating them, we've defined them, and they fit a mold. That model has the assumption that you can define the universe of what's going to happen, how often it's going to happen. You can't staff that either because you're staffing for an unknown amount of requests potentially that you then don't know if they're going to come through. Truth of the matter is, unless your product is very standardized, your requests won't be standardized because the context of them is always going to be slightly different, most likely. And you're also going to need to be able to understand how the question is being asked in context. Like, how does it actually apply to the customer's use case? And that's where the relationship between a CSOPS team and the relationship management team allows this to have a wider variety of asks, in that now it's about the context. Hey, I know they asked for X, but it's not just X, it's also X and how X fits into the bigger picture of this other thing that they're in the middle of, which is connected to this. So can we put those things together for them? That's where the package comes in versus just, I think we've all worked with teams where our customer support teams, or you kind of call centers and you ask for something and there's kind of scripted responses, how it's very defined by a QRC or something that just gives a definite outcome. It may not meet the context of your ask. So going beyond that to add more value, and then also to allow the conversations between the relationship managers or the success managers and the clients to focus on the real business needs, focus on the outcome, and remove that tension for, hey, I've asked 5 times about this. Maybe I keep providing more details to try to get to the bottom of it. And the success person in the scale team is asking me for clarification still. Now what you do is you close that gap and you make one source of ownership between the relationship manager and the client, where the refinement is going on behind the scenes. So that whole multiple contacts reaching out to me with questions gets quelled, and there's one person working with the client to own the outcome.
You mentioned that you actually publish metrics on a monthly basis. So, beyond collecting data and like publishing them, what do you focus on in terms of themes to report on? And who do you share these reports with?
So the themes that we focus on are types of requests. What we look at in types of requests break down who we're receiving them from, what they are for, and we also try to get an idea of how long they're taking. Are we staffed at the right capacity to handle these requests? And how do we then forecast going forward based on collecting that data? What else can we take on? Because a successful model is going to create more demand for itself. So we see that, and we want to be able to anticipate, hey, when people are seeing this working, they're asking us for more work. How do we answer that question? And also, what do we need from other teams? So by grouping those requests into, hey, this many might be operations related, this many may be data related, this many might just be on the configuration technical side, we are starting to see then who we need to work with on to start to either say we need more resources there. The other thing we do is create, I should say, a narrative. What's the narrative for those metrics? The number alone, just counting things, is not terribly valuable. But hey, we saw 18 of this, signifying that the configuration of this API could benefit from this. Or even moreover, it's, hey, we need to proactively communicate to the field that change is needed, or the way of using this is, or here's the documentation on how to use it, to abate receiving more requests in the future.
What would be like the main impact of actually not only collecting the requests, seeing the themes, sharing the themes, and impacting the way solutions are packaged going forward? Do you see this, for example, like a reduction in ad hoc requests? Is there like other impact that you're seeing over time since you started doing this?
A reduction in requests by being able to provide feedback to partners on configuration changes, by creating standardized reporting, creating tools that enable self-service. This has been a very large input into a partner experience project that we've kicked off that's going to enable self-service reporting, self-service configuration of products, so that these things can be surfaced by our partners directly. Then we will start to see that we can keep adding functionality there to address further requests that we start to see as themes. Ideally, as we mature, the types of things that we see come across should change. And then that gives us new opportunities to add additional functionality, be it to our portal, our self-service data solutions, or even directly into the product by being more product-led success.
So I want to emphasize that the CSOPS organization doesn't handle these requests. You essentially collate them and you're trying to capture themes, create more productivity and optimization around reducing one-off requests.
Actually, we measured this and we have a 95% rate of being able to fulfill requests ourselves. A large part of our goal is to understand requirements of these requests so that we're able to see the pattern and address them when they come in. And also we can mitigate then the dependencies on other teams and the need for cross-team SLAs. Building that knowledge set so that the resolution does not need to be handled externally has been a large goal.
Do you feel like it helped reduce the cost to serve a client in general, the average cost to serve, or maybe even increased revenues to some degree?
I would say it helped us scale. That's what I like to think about from the perspective, is that now a relationship manager, an RM, has time in their day to work with more customers or work with the customers on how that customer is going to grow on our platform, rather than directly answering some of the questions that they were before and having to spend their time researching, getting to the bottom of it, and solving problems on their own for the first time. Yeah, I think that's the unique unlock of these central teams, is that why should a number of relationship managers, your field team, have to experience solving a problem for the first time every time, when there can be a central resource that knows how to get the outcome.
It almost sounds like you created some predefined success plans or a baseline for a success plan for specific types of requests that seem to be somewhat repetitive from clients.
Correct. And then the idea to be taking it further, making them either self-service, built into the
Yeah.
product itself, or eventually eliminate the need.
Where did you find was the most efficient way to share those package solution documentations with customer success team? Do you just post it on SharePoint? Do you have like a lunch and learn so that they would know new stuff has happened?
The ways we mostly share out information, the newsletters we had mentioned are a big source. And then working with our partnership teams, either directly by having roadshows. So we'll kind of do roadshows, go to their team meetings, summarize what's new. We also publish weekly newsletters in our collaboration tools.
Who gets the newsletter?
There's two types of newsletters. The summary ones that we create monthly, those newsletters are going to go to the cross-functional leaders. So people within product, finance, the teams that we're dependent on for outcomes are the groups that we want to communicate regularly with and make sure that they understand the impact of the work we're doing with them, as well as any asks and themes. Then within our field team is probably the most compatible term for like most CS practices, is where we'll go in weekly and we'll also share in context with other things like what are client stories people should know about, what are new product features, what are changes to the product that you need to inform your clients of. We will build that weekly and publish that to the field as well so that they're kept in the loop that way. And then we also leverage cadences with each one of the business leaders to emphasize some of the key points that we're seeing as the themes where we need to address them and drive an outcome in each business, that especially when they get business specific.
We talked about what it takes to become a CSOPS manager. We talked about what you guys do. How do you impact the organization? And we talked about how frequently do you communicate with cross-functional teams, and that the main impact here is to be able to sort of like repackage some of the solutions so that improve operations and productivity. And then finally, we talked about the impact that it has on the organization. And you started touching on the type of metrics that you actually keep track of. And you said, okay, we keep track of how many requests and is it being reduced.
So we also do CSAT from our business partners every quarter. So we have quarterly surveys that are available, get feedback on the overall partnership, and then look for feedback specifically on how this is serving them. We also have the QBRs that are done with our partners to highlight, hey, what are the areas that we can improve our partnership on? What are also the things that are working well? What is the overall growth or opportunities for growth, topics we're both interested in on both sides of our partnership, and bring these things up there. Sometimes those can be great forums for, hey, if we're able to get this file more regularly, like we would be better off, and that will reduce the need. So very actionable, tactical things come out of those sessions as well that these teams are able to put in place.
When you say partners, you mean your internal partners?
No, sorry. Partner also means customer. In the CSM world, it would be customer.
So you actually meet with your business customers.
Yes, our partnership managers are facilitating that, and we will join them, or we will provide them the information that they need for those meetings. The other key metrics that we look at, I think we've started to allude to it, which is how do we look at how many requests we're getting for an individual customer? Is it a matter of something very specific to their solution that we need to take a look at? Is there configuration changes that perhaps they should consider? That if we're able to get that change made, then it'll be a much better experience for them. And the total number of requests, the amount of interactions, the time it takes to get an outcome will go down. So that's another theme that we look for. The other ones are, how many knowledge articles are we publishing? So how are we growing? Meaning, how many different types of requests are we starting to take on? How do we look at the growth of what this team is able to do in terms of what it's offering the business? Hey, we were only able to do 10 things last quarter. This quarter, we can do 20. Can we do more? And then the other thing we can do is show, hey, with the same number of people, we're now able to do this much more quarter over quarter. And then, hey, if we got one more person, here's what we think we could do, and start to forecast that out. I think we alluded to that.
You track for CSAT, you track for outputs like knowledge-based articles, you track for the efficacy of the relationship with internal customers as well as the external ones. That's a lot of data. What kind of tools does your CSOPS team uses on a regular basis that you would potentially recommend?
So the tools that we use are largely built into our service management platform. So a lot of what we're looking at are the built-in tools, built-in reporting tools within your platforms like Zendesk, ServiceNow, Salesforce, all of those, Service Cloud, just very standard reporting. And then what we have done is created tagging for our requests on our platform. So by having this tagging methodology that we apply, we're now able to see the kind of dynamic groupings that we're looking for to track more closely the types of requests, because obviously when a request comes in, no two are ever really going to be alike because of the variety you can get in how they're written. So that's where the triage level does assign a tagging to tickets, which facilitates the reporting. I'll just say the confirmation that do we then have, when we review the data, see the impact that we're looking to have. So are the request types changing over time? Are they staying the same? If they're staying the same, then what do we need to drive again with our business partners to get the outcome that we're looking for? Are those opportunities that we need to actually push maybe product for it to automate, or the data teams? Like how do those things become repetitive solutions so they're not being done by a human? They don't require interaction. They're just scheduled and automated.
So if you had to describe the tech stack for a CSOps team, what would that include? You have your data source, obviously. What else?
Well, you have your transactional platform, which is probably, sadly, going to probably start with something like email. There's probably a lot of email that we are still working with. And then the other thing I'm seeing is your Slacks and your Teams, your messaging platforms are becoming real-time platforms for the intake of requests. And that can be challenging for the relationship management or the customer success teams, because the expectation set in those platforms is their instant messaging, which implies instant response. What I think teams should think about when they're setting those up is how do you build automation into them? When a client needs to have something fulfilled, they can automatically use a bot to create the request. So it's the outcome is a request is created, not a question gets answered instantaneously necessarily. Or you create a way of managing expectations through the solution you offer on the platform so that there's guardrails on that and you don't get into a situation of always trying to find a solution instantly for something where you might need to have some time to track down dependencies and get answers. I think that's one of the learnings or one of the themes I see, especially from not just our organization, other peers that I talk to, about the challenges of integrating instant messaging or some sort of messaging directly into your stack, some sort of case management solution, and also knowledge management. We have layers of knowledge management going on through document collaboration portals, as well as then directly in your case management solution.
Where do you analyze and do some business intelligence analysis on the data?
At this time, we're thankfully able to do a lot of that in our case management solutions. We have good old Excel that we also rely on.
Power BI, maybe. No Tableau, no like fancy.
We haven't had to go there yet with the data. We are starting to build out the next phases that we're looking for are how do we get a more holistic picture? Can I merge cases and more of the transactional information and the logging together? And what would that look like? Like, how do I look at those themes and start to learn from them? And those are things that, we are looking at, like Power BIs, Tableaus. I think the prerequisite for those to be successful that we're trying to navigate first is creating that data architecture model. If you put customer in the center of your data architecture model, how does it become a primary key across all of those different systems to answer?
Well, fascinating discussion. Ben, thank you so much for coming to the show, sharing your expertise and experience in CSOps. And I'm happy that you could come in and kind of share the perspective of and what kind of role should CSOps play in making sure customers get to their outcomes while reducing cost to serve and increasing operations and efficiency so that the customer experience is more elevated.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
All right. And with that, if you like this discussion, give it a like. If you want to see more of this, put it in the comments below. We'll try to bring you more interesting guests like Ben. I'll see you at the next video.